Great. So I'm here with Dave Bruno, founder of Ynome and WM Innovation at UBS.
Yeah, wealth management.
Wealth management. So tell us a little bit about your background. You've told me you're based in Switzerland, but you're not from Switzerland.
No, with this accent, definitely not. And I've never changed my accent because I like being authentic. So I'm originally from near Boston, 2 hours west, and we have more horses than people, basically. Okay. Grew up playing ice hockey, so it's that Canadian belt, and I wanted to get to the big city, so I moved to Boston, then here to the beautiful city of London, and then shortly thereafter failed at being a ski professional in Switzerland and decided to get serious about my career and ended up in banking. So there you go, the short story.
Wealth management, whenever I hear that in fintech, I immediately think robo-advisors. Yeah. Is that where we're at?
You know, Robo for us was, when I first started looking at this, I was in a strategic area trying to figure out how do we become thought leaders for the industry. So we have the most private wealth assets, but we also wanted to be the thought leaders driving the agenda. And when we looked around at that time, in 2011-12, Robo had just started, and it was pre-moniker. And I don't think Robo is the right term for it. I think it's automated portfolio replication. And it's kind of attacking that lower layer of where we've already automated services, so you take the hands off the wheel to clients. Whereas, you know, the whole advisory space is where we're trying to do a lot more offense. So how do we digitize and make new value propositions? So for me, I don't have anything for or against robos. I've talked with maybe 100 or more of them. There's more than 500 that are either on the way to the market or already there. So there's a lot to look at, and mostly it's user experience, not a lot of patenting going on. And you can get through to the main core value proposition of it very quickly. So within a minute or two, you're onboarded. So I have a lot of respect for it, but at the same time, it's not the future of the industry. It's not the end of it.
So what is the future of the industry?
Well, I think there's a lot more to attack, and I'm a very offensive guy. You know, I grew up in kind of a militaristic mindset with that. So, privacy for services, for example, because this year is the year of AI, so everybody's working on chat bots, voice bots. We've done it too, just to keep up with the pace. So I've got a voice bot on Amazon. We've got a couple of chat bots on the way. But that's not really where we want to go. It's more privacy services, open finance, and beyond banking. Those are the three big greenfields that we're looking at intensively since about 2 years. So privacy, for example, is taking some startups like Private Machines, DigiMe, Zoa, and basically trying to create new value propositions where other people and other verticals are making the money or nobody's making the money yet.
So tell me more about privacy services, because I actually don't know those startups that you mentioned. So I'm trying to understand sort of what's the value proposition there, what's great for clients?
Well, I think private clients, wealthy people, have a lot of risk. You know, their kids go to private schools, people are protected, they have security officers on board. And when it comes to the digital world, these things are super dangerous. Uh-huh. I mean, everybody's already gotten in trouble with these one time, right? You've got the Dropbox thing, you've got Instagram, and a couple drunken photos and your reputation is ruined forever. Uh-huh. And that can happen to someone deep down in your family and you can't really control it. So very wealthy people have full-time security officers, uh-huh, and they can look after their reputation online in the digital world and that of their family and their loved ones, and which results in their reputation and their wealth, their businesses. And the poor rich guys, so those middle class of people, just above $1 million up to whatever, 20, 50 million, they don't have access to all that. So we're trying to create this other layer of services that you could use to identify risks yourself, control your data, control your reputation, and look after your businesses better.
So I saw, or Sarah provided me with one of your quotes where you said there's a massive untapped opportunity for banks to attack other industries. Is this one of those industries, or are there other areas that you think banks will go after?
Thank you, Sarah, for looking at that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes ever because it's all about offense. You've got to go. If we think we can sit back in defense and just react to digital and quote the Kodak example for the next 20 years and survive on doing financial transactions for super wealthy people, we're dead wrong. What happens is the pace of decline accelerates, and at some point you're out of business, and therefore you've got to create new P&L. So new line items that you didn't have before. So the 3M example, so corporate innovation done right allows enough to happen where you can use these little suckers to create new businesses. And so we're trying to really actively create new USPs, unique service selling propositions, in those other things that I was talking about.
So banks, to the man in the street, are a fairly sort of narrow proposition. How do you define banks in a way that allows them to attack other areas?
Well, if you look at the Bank of England, I love being in London because it always reminds me with those big, formidable walls, 15 meters tall, it said, "Don't come near us." And for those of you inside, you're in the circle of trust here, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a very safe zone. And that's always been the sense of a bank, is it's private, it's discreet, it looks after me, it protects me, and anything that goes towards that for clients, whether it be with collectibles, art, whether it's their secondary investing, whether it's their businesses, their family, I think we have to be there. And other vertical industries do that. If you take the wealth art industry, for example, it's a 60 billion transaction flow per year. I covered that in a recent episode, mm-hmm. and we're nowhere near it. So there's other consultants and shysters basically sucking up that service, mm-hmm. and more than half the world's wealth is in the hand of people that we know. Mm-hmm. So we should really be at that.
So I guess that leads to not only other industries, but other market segments. UBS is the bank for the ultra wealthy, those billionaires. Is there any appetite for going lower in the market for starting to take on those poor wealthy with $1 million to $5 million,
right, well, I say
even below?
Do
those people exist?
Yeah, I say it facetiously, but you know what I mean. It's the affluent market who's been kind of left in a hole between what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years after the crisis, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not as well looked after as the super rich, mm-hmm. and basically we're trying to extend what's happened for the super rich, which is ultra bespoke family office type service, or multifamily offices is called, back into the other people, mm-hmm. Who can use the same level of service, but at a reasonable, scalable price point in business, which means you've got to do it digitally first. So the Smart Wealth example, which I gave earlier today, is one example here in the UK where we're trying to extend out the business model and do it digitally.
And so do you see, software eating the world? Is this really about digitization and a move towards scalable services for everyone?
I hope so. Because it's the world I want my kid to live in. It's the world I want to live in, actually. I take a lot of satisfaction out of, I can learn at a faster pace than I could as a kid, where I had books, encyclopedias, and National Geographic growing up in the US. Uh-huh. And that's where I could really absorb myself and learn. And people still want to learn. And now they don't want to get fed a research report about something that doesn't interest them. Mm-hmm. They'll surf YouTube, and they select what they want to look at, and then they'll listen to that. So the concept of, banks creating research and a view about everything and stochastically pushing that out on the market has ended, mm-hmm. and people are going to pull in. So at the end of the day, I can see a world where analysts are paid for the amount of clicks they get, in a sense, right? So mm-hmm. how loved is my article? Did it go viral? Is it the Gangnam Style this year of research on real estate?
Sure. So that's something that 11FS that we talk about a lot, this whole B2C channels to do B2B marketing. The age of the white paper and the analyst report and talking at a conference is giving way to reaching people with people. And I think you're pretty well known for Maker Zone, for your YouTube channel, which is growing gangbusters. And what interests me there is that's not a UBS wealth management, persona.
No, it's actually not. And I try to never mix it with the brand because I don't want the bank to feel uncomfortable. And yet at the same time, as an innovation chief, I'm always trying to push the boundaries. What we learned is that the only way to get proper exposure for sandbox pilots for things without paying millions in marketing money, which I don't have access to actually, is to create an audience. So what I'm trying to do is create an audience with the Maker Zone, with David Bruno at YouTube, is basically all about us showing things to the world and then getting their interaction to customer feedback on what we're trying to do. So it's just us being good corporate citizens, sure. and not staying behind that closed Bank of England wall, but kind of opening it up a bit.
And how's that working? Do you get feedback? Do people send questions? Do you get audience participation?
They do, and they kind of tell us what to innovate on. Because a lot of people would just hocus pocus, chase fintech brands, look at what's called logo vomit, right, and say, wow, there's 600 peer-to-peer lenders. We should be nervous, and they stop there. My job is to make stuff. Mm-hmm. So I am trying to create the future by actively creating it, which means my guys will put their hands on it, roll up their sleeves, try to make a product, get it out, so a very minimum basic thing. It could be paper, it could be video, and say, mm-hmm. is this what you wanted? And with that art example, what we learned was the clients who we looked at it with said, that's not what I want. So we're back to the drawing board right now. I failed again, but I like that process because I learn a lot more faster. And by learning more faster, I'm ahead of other people.
So what's your best episode so far? What's your kind of the key moment we should look for?
I loved the Amazon Alexa episode because people loved it. Because they could see what we're actually doing and they could see that it doesn't work half the time, right? But we're out there on the bleeding edge of technology and trying to use something that I couldn't get access to a year and a half ago, which super frustrated me. So trying to do voice pilots a year and a half, 2 years ago was like all about administrative process and big budgets, and now it's just about trying stuff. So I've got one guy on 20% of his time basically trying it, and we're able to learn faster. So.
But that sounds like pulling out an episode where something didn't work or it was funny seems like a very authentic human kind of characteristic. Is that something you see in coming to the fore in financial services?
I think there's a huge cultural aspect to trying to change. First of all, I believe in innovating because I think corporations still have a huge potential to change the world. Everyone isn't Elon Musk. There's a lot of guys who sit behind the desks in the banking industry right now who have the knowledge to change the industry and want to, and we have to enable them to do that, and that means they have to be in a comfortable environment where they feel like I can actually try something. So my mission is kind of create that environment. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, I'm not the best banker in the room, I'm not the most technocrat, I can't even code. So I'm basically blind to the new world. But what I can do is motivate people to do it and then give them the freedom to do it. So basically, I'm an ex-hockey player. So if you can move people out from in front of the net and create yourself some space, you can shoot a goal just because you have that extra space. And I'm just trying to give them space.
Well, that's amazing. Dave, thanks for taking some time to talk to us. Where do people find you again?
Again, I'm David Bruno on YouTube and at SuperDaveBruno on Twitter. And ask me questions. Honestly, it's open innovation, so I'm trying to learn fast, which means I'm open for your questions.
Great. Thanks very much.
Yeah.